and it was a very nice participation by all of you. And of course, towards the end, we will probably just screen it and show it to you. Today, we are scheduled to do the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The 6th chapter is Dhyana Yoga, and it's a... Oh, sorry. Okay, Hare Krishna. I welcome everyone back to our 18-week session of the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Thank you all so much for joining. Today is the 6th week, and we are going to do chapter 6. Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. It's a very interesting chapter because it talks about meditation and the science behind meditation. And Krishna gets into very interesting details. And we have her Grace Kirtida Sundari with us, and she's going to talk about this chapter. And stay tuned till the end of the chapter to really understand what Krishna wants us to do. So, Kirtida Mataji, please take over the call. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Preeti Vilasini Mataji. And thank you everyone for joining us every week on Tuesday and time. So really grateful to see all of your enthusiasm and all of your dedication. So thank you so much for joining. So we'll start our Bhagavad Gita as it is, 18 chapters in 18 weeks. And I hope my voice is audible. And at some point of time, if you feel like, you can just, if you feel like that my voice is not audible or something goes wrong, then please, the coordinators can send me a message or the chat, anything can work.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so Bhagavad Gita as it is, 18 chapter in 18 weeks. And today we will do the 6th chapter, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga. Okay. So we'll go on with our slides now. So we'll start with our invocation prayers to seek auspiciousness, to seek blessings from our predecessor acharyas, and then we'll move forward. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurun militam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachanam pangum langayate girim yatpapadamam vande Shri Guru Dinadarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So let's start our Bhagavad Gita session. So first we will see the overview of chapter number 5. Anyone remembers the acronym we did for chapter number 5? Can just send a message on chat. What was the acronym for chapter number 5? Yes, very good. Step. Everybody said yes, it was step, where S stands for stay in the world. Yes, stay in the world. But how? Like a lotus leaf, where the leaf, when it is there and the water is there on the leaf, it doesn't stay on that leaf. The water is there, it stays on the leaf, but at the same time, it is not attached to the leaf, right? So we have to stay in the world like a lotus leaf. Do the duty, be detached from the results, and control the senses. And what were the 4 methods that we learned for how do we have to control the senses? Anyone remembers? You can again type it. So this way we'll make it a little interactive. How we can control our senses. We learn 4 things, right? A, B, C, and D. And what were they? Anyone remembers? A, B, C, D. A for apple, B for ball, C for cat, D for dog. Was it? No, it wasn't. Then what was A, B, C, D? Association. Very good. So it was actually association. It was B for books, C for chanting, and D for diet. So these 4 things, when we do, it helps us to control our senses. So this is how we saw S, step S, and is stay in the world. And now E, step P. P stands for 3 doers. So we know that we always think, I am the doer. Whatever is happening, I am the one who is doing it, right? But Bhagavad Gita clarifies us that there are 3 doers. And what are the 3 doers? Modes of material nature, soul, and super soul. These are the 3 doers. Then we saw equal vision, STE. In E, we saw equal vision. And in equal vision, we saw the effect of equal vision. And what was the effect of equal vision? Prakashyanti tat param, that the supreme knowledge gets revealed. It automatically gets revealed because spiritual knowledge or the transcendental knowledge or the knowledge of the supreme, you can use any term. It actually doesn't, you cannot go to any academic session in academic class and you can learn about it, but it gets revealed. How? Just as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. And then we saw the implication of the equal vision. And in implication, we saw the implication on others and implication on our own self. And in implication on others, we saw seeing Paramatma in the heart of everyone. And on self, how we saw that the person, he becomes so equipoised that he neither rejoices upon achieving something and neither he laments upon obtaining something which is not very pleasant or which is unpleasant. In one sense, one is able to tolerate the urges of the material sense. Then he rejoices within. He becomes free from all kinds of sins and he works only for the welfare of all the other living entities. These were the implications on self. And then person gets liberated. So how they get liberated? Then Krishna talks in just 2 verses and he gives the hint of Ashtang Yoga. And about this, we are going to read elaborately now in the 6th chapter, which is entitled as Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. So Krishna just gave a glimpse of it in just 2 verses in chapter number 5, that how a person gets liberated. And last but not the least is our P, S-T-E-P, where is described the peace formula. And what is the peace formula? No God, no peace, right? And then how to understand God as what he wants us to do. So we have to do everything for the Lord's pleasure. The proprietor, he is the proprietor of all planets and demigods, and he is the well-wisher of everyone. Right? We remember we did that shloka, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that unless one understands that Krishna is the master of all the material nature, is the supreme proprietor, the conditioned souls who are actually bound by the stringent rules of material nature, it is not possible for them to achieve any kind of peace, neither in this world, individually or collectively. So it's not possible. We have to come on to the right understanding that Krishna is the supreme proprietor, right? And he is the supreme controller. And of course, he is the well-wisher for everyone. So this was the whole overview of chapter number 5. And as we discussed that Krishna gave just the glimpse, the intro of Ashtang Yoga, and that leads to today's chapter, which is chapter number 6, Dhyan Yoga, right? So this is chapter number 6, Dhyan Yoga, or also called as Ashtang Yoga, also known as Hatha Yoga. So we know that in present day, millions of people worldwide, they practice this Ashtang Yoga. We have, International Yoga Day also. And this is what is, consist of what people think is that they could consist of some kind of asanas, some kind of pranayams. And yes, they definitely offer benefit for some physical and emotional well-being. There is no negation to it. But however, in this chapter, Krishna will tell us in detail, he will tell us about all the processes of Ashtang Yoga, that Ashtang Yoga doesn't mean just doing some postures, some asanas, or just some breathing exercises. But he will tell us in detail what is all about. And then finally, Krishna will also establish the impracticality of this yoga system. Why? Because this yoga performing in this age of Kali Yuga is not practical. And then Krishna will tell us that what is the highest level of yoga that anyone everywhere can perform, and there is no restriction, and what is that topmost yoga through which one can attain self-realization or spiritual perfection. So this is all we are going to talk about in this chapter, which is Dhyan Yoga. So let's begin our journey. So the acronym for this chapter is easy. It's not easy to perform, but acronym is easy, which is a kind of contradiction, right? But E stands for enemy or friend. So in this chapter, verses number 1 to 9 will describe who is our enemy, who is our friend, how to deal with it, and that's going to be described in this chapter. So E stands for enemy or friend. A stands for Ashtang Yoga. What are the different limbs of Ashtang Yoga? And that will in detail, Krishna will describe from verses number 10 to 36. So you see that how the major chunk of verses falls under this category of A, that is Ashtang Yoga. Then S stands for success and failure, which is verses from number 37 to 45. And finally, we have Y, yogi, who is a perfect yogi, and how to come to that stage. That will be described in the last two verses of this chapter, that is chapter number 46 and 47. Okay, so first of all, we'll deal with E, enemy or friend, right? So enemy or friend, who is enemy, who is our friend? So Krishna will be telling us that our enemy and our friend is our mind, and how we are going to deal with it, that will be explained in the further verses, right? So mind is our enemy or is our friend. So Krishna quotes this very, very beautiful verse. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. So you see that how this verse is a kind of a tongue twister. There are so many atmas mentioned in this verse. Bandhur atmatmanastasya yena atmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetmaiva shatruvat. So I have underlined these two things, bandhur and shatrutve. What Krishna is saying, that those who have conquered the mind becomes the best friend. And one who has failed to do so, the mind becomes the greatest enemy. In nutshell, controlled mind is an enemy of the living soul. And controlled mind is the friend of the living being. And uncontrolled mind is the enemy of the living being. So that's what Krishna is explaining here. So we all know, that we have been accompanied by so-called inner voice. There is some inner voice that is always there who accompanies us. Whenever we do an activity, there is always an inner voice that will give two options. One will be positive and one will be negative. Yes, we all have experienced that, So it says that one will be the devil on one shoulder and the other will be the angel on the other shoulder. So there will be always two contradict voices that comes us whenever we perform any activity. And what they do, they simply give their own advices. The angel will give one advice, the devil will give another advice, and finally the soul will be confused. We, the living entity, becomes confused. The person who is in between becomes confused what to do and what not to do. So the mind is that inner voice, the voice within, which offers a lot of options. And of course, how it offers? Because it is the storehouse of all the memories and the expressions we have been carrying, not only from this life, but from our past lives. So the mind is so unsteady, so unsteady. We all know the mind is very unsteady. It is just like a monkey who is jumping from one tree to another, from one branch to another, Sometimes the mind will say, oh, I want this. No, I want this. No, I don't want this. This goes on and on and on with the mind, because the mind is very flickering in nature, very, very unsteady. So actually, our Shastras, they explain that there are 10 things that are naturally very steady. It's not that they become unsteady, but they are naturally very, very unsteady by their own intrinsic nature. And they all 10 things begins with the word ma. In Hindi, it is ma, M-A, ma, right? So what is that verse? It says ma, mano madhupo megho, madhyapo markato marut, makshika matkuno matsyo, makara dasha chanchala. So these are 10, dasha chanchala, makara, these 10 things which starts with makara, means with ma, they are 10, and dasha, and they are chanchala, they are very, very unsteady. So what are these 10 things? Ma mano madhupo megho. Ma means wealth, right? We all know the wealth is very unsteady, goes from this place to another, right? And mano means mind, or you can say the restless mind. Restless mind is very unsteady in nature. It flickers, it jumps from one place to another. And madhupo we know is the honeybee. Honeybee is also very unsteady. It goes from flower to take nectar. And then megho means cloud. Cloud is also very, very unsteady. Ma mano madhupo megho madhyapo markato marut. Madhyapo means one who has taken madira, that is a drunkard person. He cannot walk straight. He will always walk unsteady way. And markato means monkey, jumps from one branch to another, doesn't get steady at all. That's the nature of this, these things. Markato is monkey. Then matsya is fish, which is also very, very unsteady. Then what it says, ma mano madhupo megho madhyapo markato marut. Marut is actually wind, which is very, very unsteady. Then makshika matkudo matsya. Makshika is the housefly. Housefly is also very, very, very unsteady. I don't know how many of you have experienced, but I'll tell you about my own experience. If one housefly comes in our home, It's so difficult. It becomes a project to catch that, and that makshika, that housefly, because it is so unsteady. Then matkudo is the bed bug, which is also very unsteady. And finally is matsya, that is fish, which is also very unsteady. So makara, dasha, chanchala, these are the 10 things that are very, very unsteady. And this verse says actually mano. So it's not that I am saying that, the mind is unsteady. It's the verse that has been telling that mind is unsteady. And restless mind, it goes from one place to another. And it is very, very unsteady. Now, if someone conquers the mind, if someone conquers that restless mind and bring it under the control, the same mind acts as a friend, and it helps one to make some healthy choices and to make some healthy decisions that will bring us closer to the Supreme Lord. On the other hand, an uncontrolled mind, what will it do? It will agitate, it will misguide us, so that we are always entangled in this world, in this material world, and we are always succumb to these vices, to these vices like lust, anger, and greed. So actually, the nature of mind is actually like a child, I mentioned, right? That I want this, I don't want this. So mind keeps flickering. It keeps on, rejection and acceptance is always there. So if we don't actually get that what mind wants from us, then we become frustrated. And if I get what my mind wants, I become happy. And happy for how long? Just for some time. Just for some time that happiness exists. And then the mind start demanding something else. Oh no, now I want something else. So it keeps flickering and it does not break one place. It keeps on moving from one thought to another, from one choice to another, from one liking to another. So mind keeps on flickering. So it's up to us how we are going to deal with that mind. And that's what this verse says, Bandhur. Yes, the mind can become your friend, provided you bring your mind under control. And the same mind can be Shatratve, can be your enemy if it is uncontrolled. And if keep demanding, then that mind cannot be under control and it acts like an enemy. It agitates us, it frustrates us, right? It cheats us. And then we are simply under the control of that mind and we have we lose our say. So now we'll see that what is this Bandhur and Shatrutve. So let's see who is a friend. So we should know that if we say that a controlled mind acts like a friend, then who is a friend? That we have to understand. So a friend is one who supports us in whatever we want to do in life. Now, that doesn't mean that the friend keep on supporting. Even if I want to do something wrong, the friend keeps on supporting. No, the friend also acts like a critic because it helps us to make healthy choices so that we can progress. So the friend, it also acts like a critic that always tells us, corrects us, here you are going wrong, so just make the right and healthy choice. And then the friend always will have a favorable attitude towards us because that's going to help us to achieve our life's goal. So this is what a friend does. And when we achieve the life's goal, then naturally we become detached from sense gratification. And then what is the result? It's the freedom from this world and elevation to our spiritual path. So this is what our friend does. Friend supports us, helps us in making healthy choices, helps in achieving life goals, helps us to get detached from the sense gratification. And finally, we become free from this material world and elevate on the spiritual path. And on the other hand, who is an enemy? It's just the opposite. Enemy is the one who blocks our progress, who doesn't like us, that if we progress, the enemy will try to bring us down. The enemy will misguide us. The enemy will agitate us. The enemy will cheat us and will always try to keep us away from our goal. And how that possible? By we've tried to follow the sinful desires. So the enemy will help, okay, keep on doing something wrong, keep on doing all the sinful acts, because that way we will be fulfilling our sinful desires, and we will be attached to the sense gratification. And what will be the result? We'll always be entangled in this material world, and there will be a degradation. So this is what an enemy is, right? So we saw that who is a friend and who is an enemy. So we have to come onto the path where we have to control. Control what? Control our mind. How we want our mind to be enemy or to be a friend. Now, in previous days, we know that the divine and the demons, they were apart, they were separate, right? Like we saw Hiranyakashipu, who was a demonic person, and Prahlad Maharaj, who was very divine and saintly. So they were two different individuals. Similarly, we have Lord Ramachandra, who was divine, and we have Ravana, who was demonic, again, two individual persons. But now in Kali Yuga times, everything is inside me. All divine and demoniac qualities are within us. Sometimes I behave like a demon, and sometimes I behave like a divine person. So it all depends upon how our mind is behaving. Sometimes the mind will tell us, okay, let us chant, because that's going to help me become more calm, more peaceful. And then we'll chant, the divine nature, the divine part of our mind will help us to chant, and we'll chant few rounds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the moment we chant few rounds, and then what will happen? The same mind will take up the position of a demoniac person and will say, hey, come on, enough of chanting. Now, let me watch some movie. Let me open my WhatsApp. It's been long. I have not checked my Facebook. Let me check the Facebook, So this way, what the mind will do? The mind will, the first mind who is helping us to chant, it will help us to grow spiritually. And the moment it takes the demoniac thing, it will tie us down, because then we are deviated from our actual process. So this is very, very important, that all the demoniac things and the divine things are right within us. So we have to see that whom we are feeding. So just like there are two dogs in everybody's heart, one is a good dog and one is the bad dog. Right? So if we keep on feeding the bad dog, what will happen? The good dog will starve. And finally, the good dog will become weak. And then what will be the result? It may die, right? So the good dog will have no existence at all. But if we keep on feeding the good dog, then what will happen? The good dog will become healthy, will become strong, will become overpowered, and the bad dog will starve. And that's what we all want. So we have to keep feeding the divine qualities in us. We have to keep feeding the good dog so that the bad dog may starve and finally leave us, right? But ultimately, the good dog, the bad dog, the demoniac qualities, these divine qualities, they all are inside us. That we have to understand. Now it's up to us whom we are feeding, and whom we are making it starve. So it's all up to us. So let's see the life lesson for E, that is enemy or friend. That first life lesson is that I am not this body, nor I am the mind. So in the second chapter, we read that how Krishna extensively explains that we are not this body, we are soul. But now we have come to this understanding that we are not even the mind, right? We are not the body and we are not the mind. And by God's grace, it is possible to control the mind. How we can control? That will be discussed in the further verses. But it can be controlled. And the more we feed the good dog, the more we starve the bad dog, the more divine qualities will develop. And the more divine qualities will come, the mind will be under control. And when the mind will be under control, then definitely mind will act as a friend, which will help us to elevate on our spiritual journey. And next life lesson is what goes in comes out. So I know many of you must be IT professional in this call. So we all know that in computers, there is a GIGO, right? GIGO effect. What is that GIGO effect? Anybody who knows about it? Want to write it in the chat box quickly? Anyone knows what is GIGO? GIGO. Very good. It's garbage in, garbage out. That's what it is. If you give the command to computer that delete all files, then definitely computer is going to delete all files. Right? So it's just follow the orders. Similarly, this is what our mind is. If we feed garbage in our mind, naturally the garbage will come out. But if we feed divine qualities in our mind, the divine will come out. So what goes in comes out. Also, another example is given. If you squeeze a mango, what will you get? Mango juice. You're not going to get orange juice. So what's there inside will come out, right? So that's what is the GIGO effect. That is garbage in, garbage out. But what we have to do is divine qualities in and divine qualities out. So we have to practice those divine qualities. We have to feed the good dog and let the bad dog starve. Okay, so this is the life lesson. And now we will see that how to control the mind. And this will lead us, because it says, right, that by God's grace, I can control the mind. But how can I control the mind? That will be discussed in the next session, which is A, that is Ashtang Yoga. So Ashtang Yoga, this is what stands for A. Remember, the acronym is EZ. So E stands for enemy and friend, and A stands for Ashtang Yoga. So what is actually yoga? That we will see. So yoga comes from the word yuti, and yuti means union or connection. And connection, the union or connection between individual consciousness and the supreme consciousness. That is what actually the meaning of yoga. Not yoga is like some breathing exercises. You know, they say that inhale deeply and exhale completely. You know, this is a kind of a breathing exercises. This is not just the yoga. This is not yoga is. Or you perform some asanas, you know, stands in certain position and or lie down in a certain position, do some asanas that going to help you deal with the problems of your body. Or the third thing is go to Himalayas, you know, leave everything and just renounce everything and go to some sacred place and perform. And these may be, you know, these are all the elements that going to help us, but they are not the yoga. They are not what we define yoga as. Yoga is not a kind of some breathing exercises or doing some asanas or going to Himalayas to some sacred place. No, yoga means to develop a relationship, to develop that connection with the supreme consciousness. That is what the yoga is. The goal is to connect to the supreme so that we, you know, that help us actually. That is what is yoga, to help us to connect with the supreme. So Ashtang Yoga, that is what A stands for. So Ashtang Yoga, as we know, Ashta means 8. So Ashtang Yoga that Krishna is going to discuss now consists of 8 process, right? 8 limbs, you can say, right? So normally when you say yoga to a layman, they will think of only 2 things. And what are those 2 things? Some breathing exercises and some physical exercises, pranayama and asanas. But that doesn't limit to it. Ashtang Yoga is beyond all that. And what is that? That we will see. So Krishna is telling that actually there are 8 limbs to this yoga processes. First is yama, that you have to follow some don'ts, that some regulations are there, some prohibitions are there. Like you cannot eat anything if you want to perform yoga. You don't have to have that tamasic, the mode of the food that is in mode of ignorance. No, you cannot have. Then you have to do some niyama also. Niyama is some do's, some rules, some regulations have to be followed. Then comes the asanas. So there is yama, there is niyama, and then it comes the asana. And asana is what is known as the physical exercise or bodily exercises. And then comes the pranayama, that is the breathing exercises. And people normally consider only these two as the yoga, but it doesn't end here. It goes beyond. And what is that? Pratyahara, withdrawing the senses from sense objects. So you have to come on to the level after doing these bodily exercises and breathing exercises. Now just see how in all this also the mind is getting controlled. We were discussing that how mind can be controlled. So when we do some yama, some regulations, we train our mind. Don't do this. This is what we have to follow. We have to regulate this. So we train our mind. We do some niyama, and that also we have to train our mind. Wake up early in the morning. Don't sleep late in the night. These are all niyamas that we have to follow. Then asanas, while doing some bodily exercises, also the mind is under control. How? Because when you do you go to some yoga practitioner and you do some bodily exercises, they will say, surrender to the posture, right? They will say, just focus on the posture you are in. So that way the mind doesn't go here and there, because the moment the mind goes here and there, you cannot retain your posture. So this is how they try to bring the mind under control. Then pranayama, breathing exercises. That's how also they say that inhale and exhale, and just focus on the breathing, the breath that goes in and the breath that goes out, right? Comes out. So that's all also when you are focusing on your breathing, then the mind is under control. Then pratyahara, withdrawing the sense from the sense objects. You have to train your mind that please, don't run towards those sense objects. We have to withdraw our senses. And finally, then comes to the stage of dharana. So just see how we are progressing from pratyahara to dharana, which is fixing the mind on the Lord's form. And dhyana, more intensified meditation. And finally is the samadhi, that is complete absorption, going into trance. So yoga, Ashtang Yoga, doesn't get limited to some breathing exercises or pranayama. It has 8 limbs to it. And then Krishna is going to describe the 2 stages of Ashtang Yoga. What are the 2 stages? The first stage is Aruruksha stage, that is the beginning stage. And the next stage is Aruda stage, that is the advanced stage. Now, don't get bewildered with all these difficult terms. It's just mentioned, so I want to make it clear. So Aruruksha stage is, Yoga Aruruksha stage means the beginning stage, where you may be to the level of some yama, niyama, some asana or some pranayama. That is the beginning stage. But there is way beyond to it. There is Aruda stage, where you become ruda, you become determined, you become fixed in your process. And that is what is Aruda stage. That is advanced stage, where you practice pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and finally reach to the topmost ladder of Ashtang Yoga, that is samadhi. Okay, these are the 2 stages that is being discussed. But then Krishna will tell us what are the practicing stage, means Aruruksha stage, and what is the perfection stage, that is Aruda stage. Okay, so here Krishna will tell first about the practicing stage. So Krishna tells that to practice this Ashtang Yoga, one should go to a secluded place, should lay a kusha grass on the ground, should cover it with a deer skin. The seat should be neither high nor too low. Then one should sit firmly and fix the mind control one's senses, and finally meditate on Krishna. So one has to also go to a secluded place. That means one has to give up one family life to practice this yoga, right? So here Krishna is saying basic practices is sitting firmly, fixing that mind, being erect, and meditating. And what is the goal is cessation of material existence. You have to give up your family life. You have to go to some secluded place. And the recommendation is, of course, proper diet, proper sleep, and proper regulation is required. And in that way, Krishna quotes this verse, Yuktahara viharasya yukta chetasya karmashu yukta swapna bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. What he says, Yuktahara viharasya, that you have to regulate in the habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work. And that can mitigate all material pains by practicing this yoga system. So you have to regulate. This is what is the practicing stage. So it's not only, and why I'm stressing on this point is that don't get confused with yoga as just some asanas and some breathing exercises. No, you have to come to the level of first practicing stage in which you have to do some niyama, some yama, some niyama, and then some asanas and then pranayama, right? And if you really want to practice this Ashtang Yoga, Krishna says you have to go to a secluded place. And these days, seclusion, where do you find seclusion? Can you find seclusion in some Varanasi or some Kashi place? No, you cannot. You really have to go to Himalayas where you can really find some seclusion. So that's what Krishna says. And then on top of that, he doesn't stop there. He says that after you fix your mind, you meditate on me, then what will happen? You have to hold one's body, one's neck, and one's head erect in a straight line, while focusing steadily, staring on the tip of your nose. And then you should meditate on me, and that too without fear. Now imagine if somebody is in the forest performing Ashtang Yoga, there are so many wild animals, and you have to become fearless, and still you have to just meditate on the Supreme Lord. And then make Krishna as the ultimate goal of life. So this is what Krishna is telling is the practicing stage of Ashtang Yoga. Of course, in Kali Yuga, it's very, very difficult. It's not at all possible. But then Krishna describes about the stages of perfection stage, the Ashtang Yoga practice, but in the perfection stage. And in perfection stage, Krishna says that once you have practiced all that, now bring your perfection. How you have to bring the perfection? By disciplining your mental activities, being fixed in the self and devoid of all material desires, so that you have to give up all kind of material desires. And then Krishna says, how you have to be? He quotes this very beautiful verse, Yatha dipo nivatastho nengate sopamasmrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogam atmanaha. That you have to become like a lamp in the windless place. When the lamp is there in the windless place, it doesn't move, it doesn't wave, right? It does not waver. So the yogi who is practicing this Ashtang Yoga, mind should be 100% controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. So that how come one comes to the level of perfection in Ashtang Yoga. Now, how many of us can practice? Definitely, I cannot, right? So, but then Krishna doesn't stop there. Then he says, right, being fixed in the self. Being fixed in the self means the mind should not go here and there. It should be just like a lamp in a windless place. So how is it possible? Because on one hand, we are saying that the mind is like a monkey. It goes from one branch to another. It goes from one choice to another, from one liking to another. How can we control the mind? And how can the mind be like a lamp in a windless place which doesn't waver at all? Then Krishna gives he says the success formula in yoga, which is bring the mind back. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalamassthiram tatastato niyamaitat atmani eva vasham nayat. Yes, Krishna agrees to it. Krishna says, yes, the mind is chanchalam. Mind is unsteady, and mind is asthiram, which is not steady at all, right? It is flickering, chanchalam, and it is unsteady. Yes, Krishna says that. Yes, it is. I agree that mind is like this. But niyamata, like with all rules and regulations, you have to control that mind. Eva vasham nayat means apne vash mein karna hai. You have to bring into your own control. So as soon as that yogi realizes that the mind is going away, it has to bring back the mind, bring back the mind. And this you have to go on practicing. Only then you will have a success formula in yoga. So that is bring the mind back, right? So after describing all these physical and mental activities in this Ashtang Yoga, then Krishna tells us about what is the vision once a person has become a perfect yogi. What is the vision of that perfect yogi? That he sees Paramatma everywhere. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na parishyami na cha me na pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor he is ever lost to me. So that perfect yogi, what will be his vision? That he will see Paramatma in the heart of everybody, whether it may be a dog, an elephant, a brahmana, a dog eater, or some birds or some trees, but he will have that equal vision, that equipoised vision, where he will see the Paramatma in the heart of everywhere. So that's the vision that Krishna describes. Now, as soon as Arjuna heard all about this, about the practicing stage, about the perfection stage, about the vision, about how to control the mind, then Arjuna becomes bewildered. After all, he is not a sage, right? He is a Kshatriya, he is a warrior. So he raises his question and he said, Krishna, okay, I've heard enough now. Now he raises this question that Ashtang Yoga is impractical due to fickle mind. And he says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavatridam tasyaham nigraham manne vayur eva sadushkaram. So Arjuna says, oh Krishna, this mind is chanchalam, this mind is restless. You already said, this mind is pramati, is turbulent, is balavat, it's strong, it's dridam, it's obstinate. Oh Krishna, and to subdue it, to bring it under control, I think it's more difficult than controlling the wind. So here, just imagine 5,000 years ago on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when the environment was very, very conducive, much more conducive than the environment that we are in right now, where we don't get notifications every now and then, notification of Facebook, notification of WhatsApp messages, and notification of different missed calls. So many things so many distractions are there. But those days, the distractions was not there. And at that time, Arjuna is saying, oh, Krishna, it's so difficult to control the mind. So what to talk about these days? It's practically impossible, right? So he's saying, oh, Krishna, I can control the wind. I have the arrows in my quiver, those celestial weapons I have, where I can control the wind. Marut, which is again very unsteady. I can control that, but I cannot control this mind. It is impossible. Then he gives these 4 very, very serious describers about the mind. And let's dive detail into it. He says, chanchalam. Yes, the mind is very chanchal. The mind is like a child. You know how the child is, or you can say monkey. Yes, monkey also goes from one branch to another. Similarly, the child is also like that. The child, mother will come, mother will say, oh, you are not going to move from here, just sit here. And the child will do some kind of mischievous things, will try to just sneak into out and just do something which mother doesn't like. And sometimes those mischievous things of the child pleases the parents because they feel happy about it. But sometimes the same mischievous done by the child may be very, very dangerous too. So here he's saying this mind is like, is chanchalam. It's very unsteady and it's childish. Sometimes it's childish, it demands, oh, I want this. The mind keeps on demanding. So sometimes it acts as a childish, but that same mischievous of child can be dangerous too. The child may fall from the bed and may hurt himself or herself, right? So mind is like a child, is childish. But okay, even if the mind, we can consider the mind as a childish, but it is a dangerous child. It is pramati. It is maddened. It's not the innocence of the child which is there in the mind. Then he says, chanchalam hi mana Krishna, pramati balavadrinam. Oh Krishna, this mind is chanchalam, but it's not the innocence of the child. I'm not talking about that mischievous things, that is the innocence of the child, but it is pramati. It is maddened. Just like imagine that in some asylum, there is a big, there is a man who has become mad. So what will his thinking process? His thinking process will be not something practical related to the world. Their thinking process will be in some kind of illusion, thinking themselves to be the president of the United States, right? So that can be maddened. And once the mind is maddened, then what happens? It is obsessed with anger. It becomes devilish in nature. There is no more innocence left. It totally becomes devilish in nature. And that's what Arjuna is explaining, that, oh Krishna, this mind is chanchalam. And not only chanchalam, it is pramati. It is maddened. It is obsessed with anger. It has so much demand. And moreover, it is balavat. Imagine there is a strong personality. And if he goes mad, it's so hard. It's so hard to control that person. You need many people to control that person if that person becomes develops so much of anger. So he's saying the same thing, this mind, yes, it is chanchalam, it is pramati, but it is also very strong. In the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also explained that how mind is compared to be God-like power. And Krishna himself says that among senses, I am mind. In the 10th chapter, we'll come across this verse where Krishna will say that among all the senses, I am mind. Because mind is very, very strong. It is balavat. It has a God-like power. It keeps on demand, and that demand cannot be denied if the mind is not under control. The person gets succumbed to the choices, to the demands, to the commands of that mind. Right? So it's balavat. It's balavat. And then finally, Arjuna says it's dridam. Now, dridam has two connotations, positive connotation and a negative connotation. In positive connotation, dridam means determined, that, okay, today, if I have taken the determination that I'm going to fast, then, I become determined that, I'm not going to break my fast. I'm not going to drink water, which is in a kind of a positive connotation. But dridam also means in the negative connotation, which is obstinate. Right? It becomes obstinate. The mind becomes obstinate. Just like we see the example of Ravana. Ravana was dridam because he doesn't want to give up Sita. Though he was being advised, or rather I should say, he was warned so many times that, you cannot conquer Ram. Ram is invincible. And, you should give Sita away back to Ram. But Ravana his mind was dridam. And in the negative connotation. The negative connotation means he became so obstinate. He became so obsessed that no, this Sita is mine and I should possess her. So that was, his nature. So Arjuna is also saying this mind, O Krishna, is chanchalam, is pramati, is balavat, is dridam. And you are telling me to control that mind? Well, it's so impractical. It sounds so impractical. I can control the wind if you want, but I cannot control the mind. And we all know that we have gone through this, the whole chariot of the body, where we have 5 senses. They all are running into different directions. And then we have mind, and then which are the reins. And then the intelligence is the charioteer who is driving that chariot. And finally, the soul is the passenger, which is taking the ride on that chariot. Now imagine if all the horses are running in different directions, what will be the ride for the soul? Naturally, it's going to be such a fragmental ride because all the horses are running in different directions. But then how to control these senses when the mind is under control? Yes, one of the horse will go and say, oh, I want to eat pizza. I want to eat pizza. I am going to eat pizza. And the mind will run. The mind will run towards it. But the intelligence has to bring it under control. That if you want to eat pizza, well, you can have it, but make it at home. Offer it to the Lord, and then you can have it. Right? So this is how the mind goes with the senses, but the intelligence has to control it. So this is what Krishna will also tell, that, oh Arjuna, don't think that mind, you are giving the right adjectives to the mind, that the mind is chanchalam, mind is dridam, mind is balavad, mind is, mind is pramati also, but still you can control the mind. And the answer Krishna gives in the next verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigram Chanchalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena Chagrihate. This is the real solution that Krishna is giving. He's saying, Asamshayam Mahabhavo, no doubt, whatever adjectives, whatever the way the 4 serious describers you have described the mind, I 100% agree to it. Krishna says, Asamshayam Mahabhago, no doubt, undoubtedly it is very, very difficult. Manodurnigram chalam, that it is very difficult to bring control of the mind, to curb the restless mind. But he says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyana chagrihate. But it is possible to control the mind. How? By abhyas, by suitable practice, and vairagya, by detachment. So Krishna himself is giving the solution that yes, it is possible to control the mind. How? Through abhyas, through constant practice. And what is that constant practice? Bring back your mind. When you are chanting and the mind goes there, and the moment you realize that the mind is thinking of something else, bring it back. Then focus on your chanting. Focus on few mantras. And then you will see, no, the mind is again running away. No way, no problem. Bring it back. More you bring it back, the more the mind will be tamed. The more the mind will be trained that no, I have to focus on the mantra. I have to be focused, right? So this is how Krishna says, Abhyasena, you have to do constant practice to bring back your mind to yourself. And then he says, Vairagya. Vairagya is also very, very important. And then he says that how Vairagya now doesn't mean just the detachment from matter, but Vairagya means engagement of the mind in Krishna's service. So only detachment won't help, right? Only detachment won't help. You have to constantly engage your mind in the service of the Supreme Lord. If you don't engage your mind in the service of the Supreme Lord and simply detach from the other existence, it won't work, right? So Vairagya doesn't mean just the detachment, but it also means detachment from matter, but also engagement into some Krishna's service. And that's what Krishna is telling here. Just 1 minute. My laptop battery is going. Okay. So it says that, So you have to constantly practice. So abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyana cha grihate, that through suitable detachment also, and detachment, not only detachment from material things, but engagement into divine things. So that way you can definitely bring mind into your control. And after telling this, thus establishing, Krishna establishes that this yoga practice without controlling the mind is sheer waste of time. So it is very, very important that if we practice any yoga system, we have to control the mind. Otherwise, it will be just like trying to ignite a fire and at the same time pouring a lot of water in it. So if we want to ignite a fire and at the same time we are pouring a lot of water in it, what do you think? The fire will be ignited? Never it will be ignited, right? So if we want to practice any yoga system, which is the connection to the Supreme, and if we think that we can do it without controlling the mind, well, it won't happen. It is not possible at all. So having heard from Krishna that one should always try to control the mind, now Arjuna, he becomes inquisitive. He becomes inquisitive in what will happen to a person who fails to continue this process, this endeavor in the yoga practice. Now, because he thinks that if somebody dies without achieving any kind of perfection, what will be the destination of that person? Okay, before that, we will just see the life lesson. Yeah, the life lesson is multitasking is reducing our attention span. Success comes from focus, not by dividing it. So here, when we saw that this slide, so senses, they are running in different directions. Now there, it can be this different or sense objects, but it can be a multitasking also. Like a mother who is cooking also, at the same time teaching also, at the same time talking on phone also. So doing multitasking. And what will be the result? None of the things will be perfectly done. So we have to stop this multitasking also. So success will come when we focus and not by dividing it. And then mind control is difficult, but not impossible. We can continue practice till we succeed in our goal. And third life lesson is mind your mind. Don't spam your mind with all those unnecessary thoughts, unnecessary topics. Just mind your mind, control your mind. Okay, then Arjuna is asking, okay, what will be the destination of a person if a person lives in between this and is not perfected in the yoga practice? What will be his destination? And that will lead to our third section, that is S, EASY, right? So S stands for success or failure. And there Krishna describes Prapya Punya Kritam Lokan Ushitva Shashvati Shama Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashito Abhijayate. That unsuccessful yogi, if that person has become unsuccessful, then after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So here, after being asked by Arjuna that, what will be the path? So Krishna says, well, don't worry, because Arjuna was really serious. He says that if someone fails to continue on the path and because of this unsteady mind, then what will be the perfection? What will be the destination of that person? Because if someone practices some medicine field, for example, and he goes to college for 2 years, but then after that he quits, then what will happen? That person neither becomes a doctor, neither becomes any kind of practitioner, and neither pursue his his medicine knowledge, his medicine things. He is not able to pursue that. So what's that destination? That person will be lost forever, because he cannot do anything now. He has to change his major altogether, because after practicing of 2 years of going 2 years of medical college, that person quits. So naturally he has to change his major, because he cannot become a nurse, he cannot become any practitioner, he cannot become a doctor. So that means he's lost. So he's saying that doesn't that person will also fall into the spiritual and the material success both, because that person have not achieved perfection. and he has already given up the material desires. So what is the destination of that person? Then Krishna reassures Arjuna, don't worry, Arjuna, there is no misfortune on the path of spirituality. A spiritual path, there is no misfortune. Then he gives this understanding that prapya punya kritam lokam, those who have performed, for some lifetime, they have, for some time, they have performed some practice, then definitely, though they will attain some pious, some piety they will have, they'll become pious and they will go to heavenly planets and they will enjoy there. And after that also, they will be born into the family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So there is no fall down. And Krishna will explain in detail that falls from the beginner position. If from the beginner position of performing any yoga system, if person falls, then he goes to heaven, he enjoys, then takes birth in a rich aristocratic family. And then if he falls from the advanced position, then he takes birth in a spiritual family. So we all know that, there are so many children in Krishna consciousness. They become so enthusiastic. They want to attend all the adult classes also, which are not meant for them, but they have become so enthusiastic. Why? Because they have fallen from a very advanced position and they want to pursue from where they have left. Right? So they takes up the process of the spiritual journey on a very high jet plane. Right? They don't just linger around, but they simply go on a very high jet plane and they attain their spirituality. So basically, Krishna is saying there is no loss, Arjuna, there is no loss. You, from where you left, you continue your journey in the next life. So just like, suppose if I have a bank account, we have $1 million. Now, if I die, I cannot, next life, I cannot come and claim those $1 million, right? I cannot, because now they no more belong to me. But for spirituality, that's not the case. So for spirituality, whatever we have in our bank account, it stays and we can claim those things in our next life also. So there is no loss at all. So that's what Krishna is telling. And life lesson is that spirituality is always a win-win situation. There is no loss. You start from where you left. So there is no loss if you pursue any kind of spirituality, whether you are able to achieve perfection or not, whether you die in a beginning stage or you die, after a long practice, but still you will begin from where you have left. So it's always a win-win situation. And finally, Y stands for yogi. Yes. So we saw that there are some karma yoga. We saw about karma yoga. And in karma yoga, we saw that it is nishkam karma yoga and sakam karma yoga. And then we saw about jnana yoga. And then past 50 minutes, we have been learning about Ashtang Yoga. And then Krishna says, but the highest is the Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are progression towards the destination of Bhakti Yoga. So that's the ladder that Krishna is telling. So in case in processes, one has to realize, and in any of the yoga processes, what one has to realize, one's constitutional position. One has to develop the relationship with the Supreme Lord, which is the sambandha. And then one has to perform certain activities to reestablish that link. And that is abhideya. And finally, one has to achieve the stage of love of God, that is prayojana. So all out of all these, Krishna is saying a Bhakti Yoga is the best. Why? Because it is the most direct method of God realization. All the other paths ultimately have to culminate in Bhakti Yoga, right? So the example is given that if you want to go on to the top of the building, so there are many ways where you can go. It's not that only there is one way you can go. There are many ways to reach on the top of the building. You may take an escalator, which you can take the staircase, which is again a very cumbersome process, and you can take an elevator where you just go, click the button, go on to the top, and you exit that elevator. So all other like karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtang yoga, These are, yes, these are the processes, but they are very cumbersome processes. For example, in Karma Yoga, to perform Karma Yoga, you are still attached. You are still attached to your duty. Even if you are doing Nishkam Karma Yoga or Sakam Karma Yoga, you are attached to the duty. And in Jnana Yoga, yes, you renounce everything, but then you are attached to merging into the Supreme Brahman. Still, there is some kind of attachment. Then and moreover, you have to renounce everything. You have to become a total renunciant in this Jnana Yoga. In Ashtang Yoga, you have to have proper health to perform this Ashtang Yoga. Everybody cannot perform this Ashtang Yoga. And especially in Kali Yoga, going to the forest, going to some sacred place, renouncing your family life, it's practically impossible, right? So it's just like climbing on the staircase. It's a very cumbersome process. It's not easy. But then Bhakti Yoga, anybody, anywhere can perform this process. It's a very sukham process. It's a very happily performed process. It's very easy also. It's very sulabha. It is very, very easy to perform. And that's what Krishna established, that Bhakti Yoga is the supreme, is the ultimate direct process, and of course is the easiest process. And then finally, the last verse, Krishna explains that who is the topmost yogi. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatentaratmanah shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. What Krishna says, that of all the yogis, one who has great faith in me, abides in me, think me within himself, and render some transcendental loving service, he is highest in yoga, and that is my opinion. And mat gaten antaratmanaha, Krishna says, abides in me, thinks of me within himself. He comes to that level where he is not forced to think about Krishna, but it becomes spontaneous. And just like when the child goes and mother sees the things of the child, it makes her remember of the child, of her own child. Similarly, it becomes so spontaneous. Similarly, when we perform this Bhakti Yoga, we are naturally attracted to Krishna. It becomes so spontaneous. And then Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. And then we render service. Bhaja words is very important. It doesn't mean just to remember, but to render some service. Service for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Bhaja means to do some activity, right? So with love and with devotion. And then finally, we'll say that what is this Bhakti Yoga? It's the topmost yoga system, and it has maximum results. Why? Because you establish the relationship with the Supreme Lord. You get the love of Godhead, which is the highest of everything, right? So maximum results are there of Bhakti Yoga. Then minimum effort is required. Even a 2-year child can perform this Bhakti Yoga system. A 2-year child cannot perform Ashtang Yoga or Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga. But a 2-year child can perform Bhakti Yoga by simply chanting or by simply dancing in Kirtan. That's it. By eating Krishna Prasadam, that's also a Bhakti Yoga. Then there is no qualification required. No qualification as such. You can perform anywhere and everywhere. There is no qualification. For Karma Yoga, you need some qualification of you need to be wealthy to perform some sacrifice. You need to have some wealth, right? For Jnana Yoga, you need to renounce everything. For Ashtang Yoga, you need a good health to perform those Ashtang Yoga. But for Bhakti Yoga, no qualification is required. And then Krishna says, completely free of sins. When you perform Bhakti Yoga, Krishna promises, Sarv dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraj aham tvam sarva papebhyo. Krishna says, I will free you from all your sinful reactions. Ma shuchaha, do not fear. That's the promise that Krishna gives. And finally, Krishna takes control over the chariot of our life. And that's what we want. So thank you all so much. We'll stop here and let's do a quick review of chapter 6. What we read is enemy or friend, because the acronym was easy. E stands for enemy or friend, which is the nature of the mind. The mind sometimes acts as an enemy, sometimes as a friend. And then we saw the yoga. Then what is the 2 stages of yoga, Aruruksha stage, Aruda stage, and then yoga redefined, what is the actual meaning of yoga, and what is the yoga ladder. Then we saw Ashtang Yoga, where we saw 2 stages. That is the physical requirements, the mental requirements, and finally Arjuna expresses his inability to perform this Ashtang Yoga, and Krishna gives his solution. And what is the solution? Abhyasena tu kauntena vairagya tyuchyate. And then we saw success and failure, where Krishna says it's always a win-win situation. There is no loss in spirituality, and destination of an unsuccessful yogi after short practice will definitely attain all kind of opulence, and after long practice will take birth in a devotee family. And the last, Krishna establishes who is the topmost yogi. Why is yogi? Who is the topmost yogi? And Krishna says the Bhakti yogi is the topmost yogi. Why? Because the maximum results are there, the minimum effort is required, and one can perform anywhere this process. There is no niyam, no kala. And then Krishna says that he himself deliver one from sinful reactions, and finally takes over the charge of that living entity. So thank you all so much. We'll stop here. And this is all about the 6th chapter.
Hare Krishna, such a power-packed session. The acronym was easy. It appeared the process was difficult, but Krishna completed the chapter in a very easy way. So thank you so much, Kirtida Sundari Mataji. We'll open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to type, or if you want to unmute, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute, or you can just unmute after raising your hand. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and start typing.
Okay, we have one question from Jayesh Prabhu, that like Marut, wind is unsteady, fire, water, etc. also is unsteady, correct? First of all, we were discussing about the words that starts with ma, that is makara, dasha chanchala. So it's Marut. Secondly, water, yes, it is unsteady, but still you can control the water. You know, it can be retained into some vessel. Fire, yes, forest fire is definitely becomes wild, but certain fire can be extinguished, can be taken under control. And even the forest fire, you can say that through rains, it can be taken. So that's how, the example is given of Marut, that is the wind, which is very, very unsteady and difficult to take over its control. But Arjuna says that he has the weapon in his quiver. He has those arrows in his quiver where he can control the wind also, which is so unsteady. He can control that, but it is impossible for him to control the mind. Okay, I hope that helps. Does our karma depend on material modes of nature, or material modes affect our karma? Does our karma depends on material modes of nature, or material modes affect our karma? Answer is yes and no. No, I'll not say answer is yes or no, but I'll say the answer is yes in both the cases. Karma depends on our material modes of nature. It's because of certain modes of material nature we are in, we'll perform some activity. And definitely, yes, right? We will be either in tamas, in mode of ignorance, or in mode of passion, rajas, or in sattva, that is mode of goodness. We will be in certain mode at times, and accordingly, we'll do some activity, right? So yes, in one sense, karma depends on the mode of material nature. But now, when we have performed that karma, the reaction will be our will be the that, like you said, the nature, modes of nature affect our karma. So the reactions will be because of that, so it's both the cases. So okay, thank you. Okay, any other question? I hope, Uma Mataji, you were able to get your answer. Okay. Anything else? I hope I've answered all the chat questions.
So if there are no other questions, then I want to quickly screen share the Kahoot answers
Sure.
Everyone. More than the answers, I think just your participation, we just want to show. because you all would have got the answers when you were answering the Kahoot. So there's nothing to show there. Here you go. So all of you have participated. There were 20 players who did it first, and then we again reopened it because a couple of them wanted to try it. So this is the first batch. The percentage shows how many right answers you got. So you can check for yourself. Yeah, and these rankings are made. If you don't get 100%, the person comes first. It's because of the speed. Sometimes ranking because of the speed. So don't be surprised. You know, if Mukta has got 100%, she's in place rather. She should have been in the first, but that's how Kahoot works. And the other group who did it, here, two of them, 87 and 60%. And I think you would have all gotten the right answers when you were playing the Kahoot itself. So thank you so much. It was really, really nice to see everyone participate so nicely. And definitely we'll have another Kahoot eventually after a few chapters. Yeah, I'll stop screen share. Yeah, any other questions or comments?
Maybe you can unmute if you want to ask.
Yeah, you can unmute and ask.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. In one of the explanations about, I think it was about yoga ladder, you mentioned that karma yoga, you are still attached to results. Maybe I did not get it right.
Yeah. Sorry, Prabhu. I said that in karma yoga, you are attached to your duty.
Okay.
Not the results, because when you perform Nishkam karma yoga, then you are not attached to your results, but still you are attached to your duty. So that attachment is still there, right?
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for listening so nicely. You're pinpointing that point. Very nice.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so thank you all so much. We'll stop here and see
we'll meet again
next Tuesday, 7th chapter. And 7th chapter, because now Krishna has already established the highest process is Bhakti Yoga. So not for one chapter, two chapter, but next entire 6 chapters will be on Bhakti Yoga. So don't miss those wonderful chapters. Those are the real, when we have a sandwich, we say that there is a bread on top and there is a bread at bottom. But in between the filling, that defines what the sandwich is. If we have a potato filling, we say it's a potato sandwich. If we have a paneer filling, then we have it's a cheese sandwich, right? So similarly, this whole 18 chapters, the first 6 chapters are the top bread. The last 6 chapters are the bottom bread, and in between the 6 chapters is the Bhakti Yoga. So it's a sandwich where Krishna establishes that Bhakti Yoga is supreme. So next 6 chapters are very, very important chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Don't miss it out and please attend. So thank you all so much. We'll stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa anam pavanebhyo
namo namah.
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, भगवद गीता की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, all the assembled Vaishnavas की जय.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranam. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.